Cheers and good morning, ICE family. It's RJ back here on Thursday, and we're going to be talking some balance and dizziness stuff today. Specifically, what we see when we're doing balance postural testing. And what I want to do with everyone is kind of start at one of the highest levels of how we could do some balance testing and dissect what the analysis looks like, and then distill that back into probably one of the most simple ways that we can attack this problem in the clinic without any expensive toys or tools. So we'll give everybody just a few more seconds to chime in and get signed on, and we'll get underway, and we'll go forward from there. So really excited to be less than 1 week away, or sorry, less than 1 month away from the ICE sampler here in Vegas. So definitely an opportunity. If you haven't signed up, big time to definitely get that last push for you guys to get into this program here in Vegas, where we've got the whole ICE team coming down. We're gonna have a great weekend. Really excited of how everything is shaping up, and we'll be good to go. So give me 1 second here and we'll get underway. So as we're looking at testing for postural dysfunction or sway or imbalance in patients that are dealing with some form of balance or dizziness disorder, kind of, one of the big gold standards is using the computerized dynamic posturography. Basically a force plate device that is going to measure the amount of movement that the person has under different conditions. So things like Neurocom, most of us have seen in a lot of our textbooks and things like that. Vertec has a new posturography machine that has virtual reality surrounding environment that we can manipulate. The old Neurocom just has a static, kind of colorful, like mountain landscape that the surrounding device can move around people. And then you have your kind of step down from that, where you maybe have a force plate, but you don't have the surrounding environment that you can manipulate. And then coming all the way back down from that, you have your classic, what we call foam and dome, which was like standing on a cushion and doing eyes open, eyes closed, or putting something around the client's head area so they couldn't see their environment. So let me see if we can calm the dog down real quick. So what we've got going on here at the most basic levels is we're looking for something that that is going to indicate to us not only if there's a problem, but where the problem starts to lie in the different balance systems. So if we look at the classic posturography testing, we've got 6 different conditions. So the first 3 conditions in there, we've got stuff that is not going to manipulate the floor that the client is standing on at all. So we're going to go through 3 parts of this test. Part 1 is I kind of think of it more so as a baseline. No manipulation, the eyes are open, the floor is steady, and the walls aren't going to be moving around the client at all. And we're getting a look, kind of them in the most perfect ideal state. Then we go into phase 2, which is eyes closed. So condition 2, we start to be able to differentiate between what's their quiet stance look like, undisturbed, and then what does it look like when we start to take away their visual cues. Still no real challenge to their balance at all, other than they're losing one of the 3 senses that we're going to look at as a contributory factor for balance. When we get into condition 3, what we're doing now is we're giving them erroneous data by manipulating the surrounding environment for them. So as the environment starts to move, and in these tests, the environment's going to move based off of their movement. So a person that has some unsteadiness or increases the amount of sway that they have, the amount that the surround starts moving around them is going to increase. So now what we start to be able to see is when we start to kind of stimulate or conflict what the visual information that is coming in, how well do they manage using their other senses that are still undisturbed. So in condition 3, the case would be their vestibular sense shouldn't really be under any duress because we're not manipulating anything there. And the floor shouldn't cause any problems because the force plate is still static. So the somatosensory input really shouldn't be changing that much on the patient either. It's just that visual clues to the person's system that are getting challenged and disturbed. So when we go on to 4, 5, and 6 on this test, 4, 5, and 6 is where we start to manipulate the floor environment. And like condition 3, in the classic version of this test, the floor is going to move and in the pitch plane on them based off their amount of movement. So what happens is if they start to see their center of mass shift forward, the force plate's going to start to tip toes down. And what that does is that takes away our ankle proprioception. So as the force plate starts to go forward, I can't get a sense out of my joints that I'm moving forward. So the relative angle at my ankles doesn't change. And so my somatosensory system isn't going to start to set off any signals to me that things are changing. So in condition 4, what we really start to have there is we need our visual cues to start recognizing that we're moving forward. And we need our inner ear to tell us, hey, I think we're moving forward. When we move on to condition 5, much like condition 2, condition 5, we go to eyes closed again. And now we're losing our visual cues again as well. And so now we've lost good somatosensory information and we're taking away all visual information in condition 5. So this to me becomes our truest sense of vestibular testing. And this is an important one for me when I'm looking at it in the clinic, because if we go to condition 5 and I have the patient close their eyes and we hit go on the machine and the force plate just tips them with their center of mass and they dead fall, whether it's forwards or backwards, that tells me their inner ear is really, really weak at picking up any form of change of position. And so their positional sense or their postural sense is significantly compromised. And so that's definitely a big indication that we have an inner ear related problem that we've got to address. And so we move then on to condition 6, where we give them that visual information back, but the walls are going to move based off of the movement that they have. So it makes it, again, a little bit harder for them than in condition 4, because as they start to move and the walls move with them, their perception is not going to be understood as easily as when it was in condition 4, when they could should have visually been able to see that the walls weren't coming with them and recognize, hey, I think I'm going too far forward and I need to make a postural adjustment. So what we start to see with condition 6 and condition 3 that we can compare back to conditions 5 and condition 2 is, how are you doing with some information, even though it's incorrect, out of your visual system versus no information at all? And that is a key thing for us to look at how kind of the whole system is processing information. If they do pretty well with some but poor information on 6 and 3, then it lets us know that the system is still doing its job at taking in all of the senses and trying to, I think in my head, like a train track switching to the route that you want to go. It's able to make the correct or appropriate switch to the system that's still giving the best information. So in condition 6, when it goes, hey, the floor's not helping me, this visual cue seems to be kind of off, I definitely feel like I'm moving, I'm still going to switch over here to my inner ear, and the patient's able to make good corrective changes, then that is showing me that the hardwiring of the system is still able to switch between them really well. To me, if we see conditions 2 and 5 are doing pretty well, but 3 and 6 aren't doing so hot, that to me says that the person running the switch operator, or the brain and central nervous system here, are off. And so what they see is I don't like what I'm getting from my feet. I don't trust my ears. Let's maybe stick to the visual system. And that's the wrong choice, basically. And so what we see is we start to see them struggle on conditions 3 and 6, and the result or the metric on that test is what we call visual preferencing. We'll start to score down. So the 4 tests, or the 4 areas that we get when we put them in the advanced testing machine, is going to be somatosensory balance, visual balance, inner ear balance, and then this visual preferencing, which is as I try to explain to patients, is how well do you make sense of bad information and pick the correct choice for you here. So when we start to bring this all the way back in areas where you can't have tens of thousands of dollars of balance equipment to throw clients in, is what do we do here when maybe all I have is a piece of foam and that's it. So if you've taken any of Jeff's courses, and we joke about it in our clinic, Jeff kind of goes on his rant about JCPenney medium firm pillows and how you need to keep it consistent for all of your testing so that you can detect subtle change. And for me, I think the thing will be 6-inch viscoelastic foam cushions when I talk about these things, because it's the traditional foam that came with the Neurocom units, and some of the research that I've read is that's kind of the standard version that you want to use, and I'll see if I can get a link to that here for the video. But the 6-inch viscoelastic foam cushions are pretty compliant when you stand on them. They have a lot of give, and they're much thicker than like a standard Blue Air-X pad. So when we're looking at cushion selection, the thinner and stiffer the pad, the less challenging it's going to be. So we want something that has a good amount of give to it, so when the client stands on there, that they're going to get an appropriate challenge. And so that's the one that I choose, and I choose that every time I test somebody in the clinic. So we can really get the modified CTSIB is a good screening tool and can give you some subjective impressions of sway under different conditions. You can get eyes open and eyes closed on firm surface, looking for, what does the person look like static stance for about 30 seconds, toss them up on the foam, and then run it back, eyes open and eyes closed there. So this gets you at least in the ballpark of conditions 1 and 2 and conditions 4 and 5. But we still have this challenge of not getting information in things like conditions 3 and condition 6 that we can get up in the full-on posturography. So there's some options that we have here that we can do. And I still like to use these in the clinic when I can, because it, again, gives me an opportunity to have a better understanding of what's going on with the patient's symptom complexity. So things that I may throw in with my classic just foam screening testing is you could do a condition 3 where you can use a virtual reality headset. And what's cool in the last couple of years of having this is you can go to a store like Walmart or Target, and you can buy a virtual reality headset for your cell phone for maybe $20, and you can download some free apps in the App Store. And now you can create visual conflict on foam and look to see how they manage that against eyes closed. And I've used things like optokinetic stripes, which are just the alternating white and black stripes that move whether horizontally or vertically on the screen. I've used, a roller coaster app where I'm creating the perception of motion, riding up and down through a roller coaster. But there's things that we could do through the virtual reality headset that are going to challenge the patient's perception visually by giving it different information, creating the illusion of motion while they're standing statically both on the ground and on the foam cushion. And then other things, if you don't even have that, I like using VOR cancellation. So the patient sticks their arm out, they have their thumb kind of right in line with their nose, and they're going to rotate their torso so that their eyes stay in sync with the movement out of their arm as they swing it in an arc motion back and forth in front of them. You don't need a ton of speed when you're doing this. You just rotate side to side and see again how they manage. Yes, Meg, I will get that for you here. I'll try to take a picture of my phone and post that with some of the apps that I've used for the VR stuff. So you use the VOR cancellation, and what you start to get is as I stay on my thumb and I rotate side to side, my thumb is going to stay very clear, but the background is going to get very, very distorted to me, which creates, again, some sort of spatial motion discomfort. I'm getting kind of mixed signals and messages as I turn. And you could even do things like your classic just VOR testing, have them on there shaking their head side to side. If you have an eye chart nearby that you can ask them to read, giving them kind of a dual task where you're getting a little bit of information here. The reason I don't jump straight to that one is because now I'm muddling a little bit of VOR testing with postural testing. I think that's a great higher level progression of testing to look at. I would rather just try to keep at least getting my data baseline clean between the two of them first and do my VOR testing here and then do my postural testing here. And if some of those seem to test out pretty cleanly, but I feel like there's more going on, then maybe I'll layer them together as a more difficult challenge. So that's, I would say, the easiest way if you're looking to get this done in the clinic and you don't have the dollar spend to go out and buy a super fancy machine, is using that thick foam cushion, creating the environment through virtual reality with maybe a $20 headset out of the store. And then your in between of those is using a force plate by one of those companies that makes them, that is still going to give you an objective measure of sway. And then you can still add in the things that we talked about. You can still add in the virtual reality or the VOR cancellation or even a VOR test as part of a component of it. And now you're going to get the objective data from the force plate. You just won't have the full-on classic posturography type test where the environment or the walls are moving based off the sway of the patient, and the force plate isn't going to tip in the pitch direction based off the client's sway. So I hope that helps. I hope that's something that is practical and easy for any of you guys to use in your clinics when you have some patients with some balance or dizziness disorders that you can apply today. And look forward to seeing you guys hopefully out in Vegas at the beginning of April. And we'll get rocking and rolling. We'll go out and we'll hit the town hard after we hit the sessions hard during the week, and we'll have a great time. So cheers to everyone, and enjoy your Thursday. We'll get on with Friday, and then we'll recycle next week for another good session of content from all the instructors. Catch you guys later.